Hi, in this topic we'll look at background knowledge, last but not least of the early literacy components. Background knowledge is what children know about the world before they enter school. Although background knowledge helps them to understand the meanings of words, it is deeper and broader than vocabulary. The experiences that children bring to school influence their background knowledge. It is critical to their understanding of what they read. Background knowledge is broad and includes three subtopics which we'll look at here. Conceptual thinking, which is abstract thinking. Content knowledge, which includes facts and information on a variety of topics, and book and story knowledge, which includes how stories work, narrative skills, which is telling and retelling stories and events, and print motivation, children's enjoyment around books and reading. Research notes that the more a person knows, the easier it is for them to learn new things. As you take in new information, as you think about the information, and as the information is stored in memory, you are building on the knowledge you already have. Children bring their knowledge of the world to interpret the words they are decoding in order to make sense of what they're reading. So when you looked at the early literacy planning tool for background knowledge, I hope you checked off some strategies that you were already doing in your story times. Let's look first now at conceptual thinking, the ability to think abstractly. Conceptual thinking includes knowing concepts like colors, size, opposites. However, it's broader than that. It's the ability to think abstractly about things you are not immediately able to see in front of you. So, for example, symbolic thinking, where one thing represents another. So the progression of this is from the more concrete to the more abstract. Here are some examples. A toddler might have his own sippy cup and drink from it. So he's starting to think a little bit abstractly, symbolically, when he uses his sippy cup to feed a doll. As they get a little older, they might use a block to represent a cell phone or a truck. And preschoolers might need no symbol at all. They hold out their hands and say, "Would you like a pizza?" So they're learning one thing represents another. It also includes the ability to pretend and imagine and to understand ideas like truth, fairness, and responsibility, which we can't actually see. Conceptual thinking is the construction of thought processes, including remembering, problem solving, and decision making. So for an infant, the beginning is object permanence, the concept that an object exists even if you can't see it, which starts at about 8 months of age. For problem solving, you need memory to notice patterns and to learn from past experiences. So I'm not talking about 2 plus 4 = 6. I'm talking about, I can't reach my toy. How can I get it? Problem solving. And when children make connections between experiences and knowledge, so text to self, text to text, and text to world. So text to self is when we're hearing something from a book or reading something, they're making the connection to something about their own selves. Text to text is making connections between two books, like The Three Pigs and The Three Bears. And text to world is making a connection between what they're reading and the world around them. So making connections is part of conceptual thinking. Conceptual thinking is also observing objects and their relationships. So for beginners, a little infant is feeling objects, tasting them, manipulating them to see what they can do. Toddlers and twos can sort by 1 or 2 characteristics, like all the blue balls or all the big red balls. Preschoolers can sort by 3 or more characteristics, including the function of the object, not just how it looks. So they may be able to sort things that can cut, or they'll sort between gardening tools and cooking tools. They also have the ability to put things in sequence, in order. So for toddlers, this would be very concrete, and only 2 in a sequence. First I put on my sock, then I put on my shoe. And older children, preschoolers, they might tell you a whole imaginative story with a long sequence. And it includes the ability to predict and to recognize cause and effect. So for our infants and toddlers, flat books are a great kind of a peekaboo to support object permanence. For our toddlers, the concept of all gone is one infants and toddlers can understand. This book shows cereal, juice, and cookies, and then for each one shows them all gone. Books that look at colors support conceptual thinking. Having the real item, a lemon or a banana, to show that the picture represents the real item also supports conceptual thinking. For our toddlers and twos, relating the pictures in a book and what is happening in the book to the child's world develops comprehension, and we can do this in a number of ways. So we might encourage children to talk about the pictures and their own experiences. If they don't have that much language, then you can offer the words to make those connections. Having children draw a picture around the book and tell you about it allows them to be in charge of what was important to them. So you're following the child's lead, building on what they're saying and knowing, and then adding to it. Books like Jessie Bear, What Will You Wear? Offer a good opportunity to talk about sequences, in this case, the sequence of the day. For our preschoolers, we can do everything that you would do with our younger children, but also knock it up a notch, encouraging them to use their imaginations while telling you stories, or they might make up a different ending or a different solution to a problem. So how can we use some books to support conceptual thinking for our preschoolers? For example, Jamaica's Find uses honesty, talks about honesty. So she returns a lost stuffed animal puppy dog. And we can talk about the ideas, not just the word itself, and apply that to different situations. In Flight School, this is a humorous story showing perseverance and problem solving as a penguin tries to fly. So having children think up their own ways to solve the problem and showing the importance of perseverance, talking about that idea, also helps to support cognitive thinking. And then cumulative books like Jump Frog Jump. This is the snake that dropped from a branch and swallowed the fish. These cumulative tales support sequencing and prediction. So now let's look at the second area of background knowledge, which is content knowledge. Content knowledge is knowing information and facts on a variety of topics. This knowledge can be gained in different ways, through books, through the child's own investigations, and of course when adults talk with children about information that they know and share it with the children. Children who have strong content knowledge will find it easier to later understand what they read. We often choose topics that are of interest to the children, and that's certainly a good start. But it's also important to expose children to topics they might not be aware of. So topics that are of interest to you or of interest to their caring adults are good ways to expand their horizons. Using books to explore beyond children's own world is important. For example, if they live in a farming area, we would also want to introduce books about what it's like living in a city. Did you take the factual books versus storybooks quiz? If not, pause here and try it now. When you're done, resume the recording. You may have been surprised that all the correct answers were factual books. A study in Reading Research Quarterly noted that parents talk with their children twice as much during shared book reading of informational texts than with storybooks. And parents also allowed children to talk twice as much with informational books than with storybooks. The talk around informational books was at a higher level of cognitive demand. So this occurred without any training or teaching for the parents. Factual books basically are just more interruptible. With storybooks, parents like to keep the momentum and the continuity of the story so that children will understand it. Parents are more interactive with their children around factual books. So consider more factual books in your story time and suggesting them for parents to share with their children. Here you can see book characteristics for babies and toddlers, things they respond to best. Any book you read with infants and toddlers provides an opportunity to talk about the world. Yes, it might just say banana, but you can add information. How does a banana feel? Well, the skin is smooth and hard, and inside it can be a bit mushy. What can we make with bananas? How do they grow? For toddlers, we can use lots of print materials to share content information. Even a catalog offers opportunities, and you can model this in your story time. We're not just talking about the names of the objects which would support vocabulary, but we also want to talk about what they're used for. What are they made of? When might you have used them? For toddlers and twos, we use factual books as great conversation starters. We can read some of the information offered in the book and add any information we may have, and then relate the topic to the children's own experiences. Here's from milk to ice cream. I bet they'll tell you lots of times they've had some ice cream. And there's no need to read the whole book. Even modeling with a page or two is fine. For each story time, targeting ages 2 and up, we should include at least one factual book, even if you don't read the whole book through. As a storytime provider, you are modeling to parents and caregivers the value of sharing factual books with their children. They often think of the nonfiction section as the homework section. I have found a lot of factual books go out when I have a display of them at story time. For our preschoolers are curious about so many topics. Of course, it varies from child to child. They are often avid collectors, and they like to collect facts as well. We often see a sense of pride as they share information they know. Here's a little example that a Storytime provider told me after a training. He was doing a story time on dinosaurs, and he held up a book and it had a picture of a large dinosaur on the cover. And he said, "Ooh, I'm scared of the dinosaur." And one of the children pipes up and says, "Don't worry, Mr. Jim, he's a vegetarian." So there you have. You never know all the information children know about whatever topic they are interested in. So introducing children to topics and information not in their immediate world helps them learn about the larger world, which will help them later understand what they read. In the next segment, we'll look at book and story knowledge aspect of background knowledge. Thank you.